Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. I'm looking at this book which has come to us from WILDY, Simmonds and Hill Publishing. It's a second edition of a well-known book, actually, one I've reviewed before, Charging Orders on Land, Law, Practice and Precedents. Now in a second edition, and the editors are Cecily, Crampin and Michael Ransom, and Falcon Chambers. This is the book itself. It's a hardback. There's the spine. There's nothing on the back. Just briefly running through it in this short review. The total number of pages, it runs to 350 odd pages. There's an index at the back. Very much the standard type of index for WILDY. And the references are to page numbers because there is paragraph numbering in it. If I go to the front of the book, you've then got, right at the front, the basic information and the list of people involved. I can't go through all of them, but I will say that a lot of people are involved in this. There's a lot of detailed information, and I thank Falcon Chambers very much indeed for what they've done. Do read forward to the second edition, which will give you some idea of where the changes are from the first edition, which came out in 2013. Been around a long time, and charging orders are very important. It can be very important to people when they're trying to dispose of property. There's the contents section, which you can see, runs through for a few pages. Then right at the back, you've got eight chapters. Then you've got a series of appendices at the back, dealing with drafts, various other things, all very helpful. What I did find good, useful was the list of abbreviations, always important because it is so easy to forget what an abbreviation actually stands for. So that's there. Then you've got the Civil and Family Procedure Rules, a comparison of tables. So the CPR and the FPR are compared, which I think is also very helpful because obviously this area covers both areas of the procedure rules. Then you've got the tables of cases, quite a lot. Then you've got, of course, statutes thereafter. Then you've got some statutory instruments after that. Then after that, let's see what else we've got. Yes, there is a little bit of other material. Now the other material is really stuff that is, these are actually in this case forms, relevant forms. Then we get to the actual book itself. Chapter 1, Introduction. Then you've got paragraph numbering. You'll probably see that on the side there. You've got some footnotes at the bottom. And just running it through. You can see some pages got a lot of footnotes. Very useful book this for practitioners and for members of the bar. Now what do we say? Well, Elizabeth and I talked about the review, and Elizabeth decided to be the lead writer on this one, which I thought was helpful. We were a bit busy at the time. And we've given it a title, we discussed it together, and the title we've come up with is Charging Orders on a Debtor's Property. Clear, authoritative and practical advice from Falcon Chambers. And that's what we've got in this new second edition. Charging Orders on Land has now arrived as a second edition from Falcon Chambers. This is for the year 2024, right at the beginning of the new year. Events which will certainly be welcomed by counsel, embroiled in the specifics of charging orders, which more often than not present special problems for us when we're looking at the issues about how a case is going. And this area can be a particularly difficult area because charging orders, of course, do tie up the property. What we have here then is a highly specialised and quite narrow area of law in which attention to minute detail is all too often imperative. Fortunately for practitioners, we got WILDY at hand, WILDY, Simmonds and Hill, or WILDY, Simmonds and Hill Publishing. They are extremely helpful in giving us sage advice, and here they actually deal with the challenging aspects of charging orders themselves. And I think it can be quite rightly described as a distinguished text from WILDY, which presents us with up-to-date and authoritative help in what is now regarded as a definitive area of law in this subject and a definitive work for us. The editors, as I've said, are Cecily, Crampin and Michael Ransom. They're assisted by 9 contributors from Falcon Chambers, known as the set which specialises in land law and landlord and tenant work. I mean, a lot of chambers do, but they are very specific. and again you go to them for where you've got a really serious problem. Quite often it's just a peripheral problem, so as counsel you might need to know a little bit about it, but it won't be the main issue in the litigation. Practitioners seeking advice and guidance from this new and updated edition can, I think, be confident that they're in good hands here. I certainly have found this a very useful book. For example, there's a new chapter on insolvency regimes, plus the inclusion of the new CPR procedures and precedents. And this then is an ample and detailed compendium of practical advice and guidance on the enforcement of money judgments by means of obtaining a charging order. Initially it may sound straightforward, except that all too often it isn't, as any number of complications can occur within the various stages of enforcement on which there is a special chapter. And of course, as I said, it does tie up land. Also note the chapter on priorities and problems, and note the specialist advice on sanctions, tenanted property, overseas entities and much more, including the new chapter on corporate and personal insolvency. And a word which I think is important is remember the basic common law concept of not tying up land indefinitely. There are always plenty of old rules about that. And one of the problems with charging orders, as I see it in practical terms, is they do tend to tie up the land for much longer than we would like. And of course, when they have an acute problem with housing, that's an issue which becomes political quite quickly. Certainly then, this book can be depended upon to explain or clarify the various and seemingly endless snags and contingencies that frequently occur within this particular category of law. That includes, probably the most frequent of all, the cases which come under the heading of personal circumstances, the family home. That's getting right to the heart of the family and the community, which is typically balanced against the claims of the judgment debtor's spouse, or possibly former or divorcing spouse, or any children who live in the property to be shared, because you have to think of the effect on everybody concerned. But it's also carefully pointed out by the authors that sometimes in such cases the charging order can be withheld, or the interest of one party, for instance, can be transferred to the other. And that's really where the equitable concepts come in, because it's trying where possible to be as fair as it can be. Small wonder then that in the opinion of quite a few practitioners, the concept of the charging order all too often presents a serious impediment to selling out, which of course is what it's exactly designed for. But it doesn't help if I'm, as I have been, a counsellor dealing with housing applications and trying to allocate, when I've got such a small amount of property that I can look at, because obviously there are so many encumbrances on the land. But there again, I would say, nearly 100 years after the law of property legislation, it's time that we had another look at everything. But that's for another parliament. Therefore, let me conclude by saying this. Considering the often complicated and sometimes controversial area of law, it's reassuring for the busy practitioners that this comprehensive and carefully researched legal text is easy to navigate, which it is. You've got a good index at the back and you've got detailed contents at the front, so you should be able to find what you're looking for pretty quickly. The table of contents is almost minutely detailed, thank you, and the extensive appendices at the back offer more than 100 pages of statutory material and precedents, which in fact you've all got in one place. Again, I think that's extremely helpful. There's also an invaluable resource, of course, for counsel, which will be of special interest to us when we're actually charged by the judge with drafting the orders to save them time. Of course, we all know who has to pay for it all. It's the client at the end of the day. Also, do note the table of cases, statutes and statutory instruments which are included, and the tables of the European conventions and other materials which will assist. I think any practitioner involved in this highly specialised area will find this new edition comprehensive and very carefully researched. It's a legal text well nigh indispensable, and the date of publication of this edition is January 2024. Here it is again, front and the side. Just opening it up in the middle so you've got an idea of it. This is enforcement. evidence in support of enforcement. You can see again the structure, the paragraph numbering, and then you've got detailed footnotes at the bottom. So all in all, a really excellent book. Thank you, Falcon Chambers, very much indeed. And can I say thank you to Wildy's. You make our lives a lot easier by these books, and it really saves us a lot of time. So a deep felt thank you to everyone, and thank you for listening to me today. Bye-bye.